Forget about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Forget about Larry Nerd. I don't want to hear any of it. I think the Minnesota Golden Gophers are going to upset the number 1 seeded Indiana State.
Hey,
You are Locked On Golden Gophers.
No matter what we're going to do here, we're just going to keep rowing.
Your daily podcast on the Minnesota Golden Gophers.
However it turns out, we're just going to keep rowing.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
We're just going to keep rowing, and keep rowing.
What's up, Gopher fans? You are listening to Locked On Golden Gophers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name's Kane Rob, host of the podcast, former collegiate football video coordinator and recruiting assistant, here to talk Golden Gophers with you each and every day of the week, Monday through Friday. Today, we're talking all Gophers men's basketball. We're prepping for the second round of the NIT. Tomorrow, though, we're going to talk about the Gophers practice, what I noticed in the DTA, the Dinkytown Athletes practice that was available to Gophers fans this morning. I'll tell you what I learned there and more. We'll get into some insights, some things to keep in mind as we move forward in the spring, and which positions are still of concern, even though we're only 2 practices in. We're going to dive into all of that on tomorrow's show. That's right, Sunday, the 24th of March. We're going to have a show just like we're having a Saturday show here. I'm going to try to have a show for you almost every single day for the rest of this month. Now, I know the month is almost over, but I know you'll appreciate it. So be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of that. We're going to talk a whole lot of spring football. We're also going to talk about the men's basketball team as they continue to go forward in the NIT, and the women's basketball team who is getting Mara Braun and Sophie Hart back for the WNIT. It's a lot of positive news for Gophers fans, and you should be embracing it. We also have a new 2025 commit who we will talk about for the Gophers moving forward this week. So be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of that Gophers good content on the daily. Now, like I said, today we're going to start off today's show and go through most of today's show with the NIT round 2 experience with the Golden Gophers taking on the number 1 team in the NIT in Indiana State in the round 2 on the road at Indiana State. Now, Indiana State was the number 28 in net rankings in the entire college basketball. That is the highest net ranked team ever in the history of the NCAA basketball tournament to not make the tournament, being the net ranked 28th team in the country. Now, you can bet they feel slighted. They feel upset. They feel ticked off. They feel hungry to prove every single person on that committee wrong. And right now, the only thing standing in their way to getting further towards their goal of winning this NIT is the Minnesota Golden Gophers. So Minnesota is going to have a team that is on fire, that is passionate, that is pissed, that is going to be trying to take them down at home. So that's another thing that's playing into their favor. Their fans are going to be loud and proud. Indiana State is a 29-6 program this year. That said, they have not beat a single power conference team this year. They lost to Alabama very bad, although it was the second game of the season. So it's a whole different team since then. And then they also lost to Michigan State early on in the season. Those were the 2 power conference teams that they played, and they lost to both of them. They also lost to Drake 2 times, so that's 4 of their 6 losses right there. The other 2 losses, Illinois State and Southern Illinois, 2 teams you wouldn't imagine they would lose to, but, it's any given night. That's why they play the game. I've seen some Gophers fans say, oh, we got Indiana State, we're going to lose. It's why they play the games, folks. If you're so negative and you're so down bad about the Gophers team and it stresses you out that much, then don't watch the games. But if you're a fan, if you're a person that's like, man, I love this team, I love what I've seen, I love the hopefulness, I love the progress they've made, but also the potential is the word I was looking for. I love the potential of this team, which I do. I think if this team ran it back next year, they'd be in the NCAA tournament. They'd be a top 5 team in the Big Ten Conference, and they would be a force to be reckoned with. So What's stopping them from being a force right now? They just pulled off an upset. Hopefully they can keep that going, ride the momentum, and take on another team, the best team in the NIT, and keep the upsets going. Now, that being said, the Sycamores of Indiana State have 5 players scoring in double figures right now. They only really play 6 players in a game, so a super short bench, similar to what Coach Ben Johnson does with his team, even a little bit shorter in my opinion, but sometimes they get a 7th guy in there as well. But the main guy, the one everybody knows about, is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Then that's Cream, not like Kareem the Dream. But they've got him, Robbie Avila. That's his nickname. They like to call him Kareem Abdul-Jabbar or Larry Nerd. They've got all sorts of nicknames for him, but he's a 6'10" center, big dude, doughy looking dude. He was on Pat McAfee this past week. And you know what? The Gophers are going to have their hands full with this guy. This dude is like the collegiate Nikola Jokic. This dude gets it done. He's shooting like nearly 40% from 3-point line. He is average 4 assists a game, 6.7 rebounds a game, 17.3 points per game, only under 2 turnovers a game, 1.8 turnovers per game. This dude, like I said, he gets it done. He's all around. He's like the collegiate Nikola Jokic. So overall, the Gophers are going to have a tough draw. Now, the matchups that are going to be huge in this Gophers game is going to be Pharrell Payne on the defensive end, because he's probably going to draw that assignment against Robbie Avila on most of this game. Now, occasionally Dawson Garcia could get in there. Maybe we see Wilson hit the floor every once in a while. Hopefully not. Hopefully we don't have to, because Payne and Garcia and whatnot are staying out of foul trouble. But regardless, they're going to have to play hard-nosed defense on Avila, and that all starts with Pharrell Payne, who will probably draw the assignment the most of all the Gopher players. So he is probably the number one focus on defense is Payne for the Gophers. And then I think that this is a game that Minnesota, if they want to have any chance in pulling off the upset, if they want to have any chance at being able to win this game or win it comfortably, that's a hard word for me to say right now, apparently. They need to be efficient from the 3-point line. Now, this team, like I've said time and time again throughout the entire season, is they live and they die by the 3. Sometimes they are shooting 24, 25, 22 3-point attempts a game, and sometimes they're shooting 20%, and sometimes they're shooting nearly 50%. This Gophers team, now, I don't think they necessarily have to shoot 50%, but they have to shoot efficiently, and they have to knock it down when they get their openings. They need to get confidence. They need to be good shots, good looks. You can't force up dumb shots, early shots in the clock. But overall, if the Gophers get cold from the 3-point line, and especially early, and get behind in this matchup, this is a team that you are asking to lose to if you do that. So the Gophers have to shoot the ball efficiently, and that is why my X factor for this game, for the Minnesota Gophers to pull this off, is Cam Christie. Cam Christie, the guy that many Gophers fans are holding their breath, crossing their fingers, hoping he will come back next season and not take his talents in an attempt to get drafted to the NBA after his freshman year, but hopefully staying one more year as a sophomore. They're living on the Tom Crean plan of hoping he comes back as a sophomore and ends up a top 20 pick moving forward in the 2025 NBA draft. We'll see how all that plays out, but I know Cam Christie is not thinking about the NBA draft right now. He's thinking about how he can get past Indiana State and keep going with his team to win the NIT tournament. He's solely focused on the current, the here and now, and playing the games that are in front of him. So if Cam Christie is playing at his ceiling, and again, this game happens on Sunday, so tomorrow, I believe it's at 1 p.m. If Cam Christie is playing at his ceiling, he's knocking down threes, he's knocking down the mid-range, he's in his bag, then I think you'd take that paired with a regular night of Dawson, a regular night of Elijah Hawkins. That is the winning recipe in this game. If you have Cam Christie at his best and you have the other guys playing at least their average or around their average, I think Minnesota walks away with a win against Indiana State and puts a lot of teams on notice for the future, especially if we can run it back with most of this team coming forward. I think that this is a huge defining game for Minnesota's season. If you pull off this one, regardless of what happens with the NIT, although you would love to win the whole thing, if you pull off a win like this, where it should be a tourney team, a team that should have been maybe even could have made a deep run in the tourney and they didn't get in, but all of a sudden you come out and you prove, look, we can hang with the best of them. That is an eye-opening game, a big win on Ben's resume for this season. So hopefully they can get that done. Now, one thing that I love about this matchup is that Michigan State gave this team problems. And I believe Minnesota this Minnesota team matches up and plays well versus that Michigan State team. I believe that this Minnesota team can really play a similar style of basketball that Michigan State team likes to play. So if Minnesota can really analyze that game tape and they can really find the ways to attack this team, I think Minnesota could find themselves upsetting the highest ranked team in the NIT in Indiana State. From there, it would be how does that give new life to Minnesota? How does that give the confidence to take down anyone in their way and win this entire NIT tournament and postseason play? That is what we got to hope for, and that's what we got to look forward to if they can pull off this upset. Now, I have 3 keys for the Gophers in order to pull up the upset at Indiana State, and that's what we're going to talk about coming up next. First, I definitely want to talk to you about our friends over at Manscaped. Now, this episode is brought to you by the spring cleaning champions. That is Manscaped. And this season, make sure to groom your carpets and the drapes with the leaders in the below the waist grooming. Clear out the winter bush with Manscaped Lawnmower 5.0 and watch your confidence bloom like springtime flowers. Embrace the season and join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our special offer where you can go to manscaped.com and use promo code LOCKEDON for 20% off plus free shipping. So why wouldn't you give it a try? I mean, here's the thing. One thing that is absolutely, you've lived through it once, you'll never want to live through it again, is when you get a cut down there. Now, this new Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra, the 5th generation trimmer, features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. So you don't have to hold your breath every time you are going to clean yourself up. So whether you're looking to craft your signature look or clean up the neckline, these are always the right tools for the job. Now, like I said, you can go get 20% off and free shipping with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. That's 20% off with free shipping at with the code LOCKEDON at manscaped.com. Nothing like a little spring cleaning in your pants. While we're there, we're going to talk about our friends over at Bettor Together, because right now is the best time to not only take your stab at the new DFS type plays when it comes to the sports betting apps, but now you can do it with your friends. Bettor Together is the first cooperative daily fantasy application, and we're very much better together. Now, it offers a familiar experience of existing DFS players with a social twist. You can play with a friend or a teammate of sorts and provides a sense of camaraderie and enhances the social experience of watching sports. So it's a way to stay connected with friends when gone are the days of watching sports together in person, but you can put your group chat to the test and prove that yours is the best. Now, if your bracket is busted already and you're tired of the same old daily fantasy grind, then this is definitely where you're going to want to go. You're going to want to make a roster. You don't have to cross your fingers anymore and hope for the best, but you can play with your friends in a daily fantasy platform where teamwork triumphs talent. Now, with your friends, you can go and pick more or less on a real-time player stats and strategize with your partners to boost your odds and climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend and give it a try. Now, Bettor Together is the new app, and that is BETTOR Together, now in the App Store, and you can sign up using promo code LOCKEDON. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON to win your chance of a share of over $1,000 in cash prizes, because winning alone is fun, but it's better together. All right, Gophers fans, let's talk about the keys to beating Indiana State on the road, the number 1 team in the NIT, and the Gophers can get it done. I truly believe that. But there are 3 things they're going to have to do in order to bring home the dub and keep advancing in the NIT tournament. The first thing that the Gophers absolutely have to do, key number 1 in upsetting Indiana State, is you have to shoot efficiently from the 3-point line. Now, like I said, I've already mentioned this in today's show, but you cannot die by the 3-point shot in this matchup, or you will be out of this one in a hurry. So you have to take smart 3-pointers. You have to knock down your open 3-pointers, and you have to get confidence and energy gelling. It doesn't mean fire up 25 3-pointers, but it means when you're taking maybe 15, 18 3-pointers that you're hitting close to 44% of your threes, close to above that, or maybe slightly below that, over 40%, but knocking down the 3-pointers with consistency and using it to generate momentum. That is going to be huge for the Gophers, and they've done that quite a few times on the season, but they're going to need it even more and then some when taking on Indiana State on the road. So that's key number one, is shooting efficiently from the 3-point line. Now, key number two is focusing on the interior defense. We've already talked about Robbie Avila, the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Larry Nerd, whatever you want to call him. I'm calling him collegiate Jokic at this point. But if you can slow down Indiana State, especially on the interior, that's when they start to have problems, because this team is very streaky when shooting 3-pointers. Now, they can occasionally get hot, but they tend to struggle more so than they do well at it. And in most of their losses, they have shot poorly from the 3-point line. So if you can continue to play tough, hard-nosed interior defense and force them into difficult 3-point shots, I think that's where you give yourself a chance, and you give yourself a chance to get the ball back in your hands quicker with bad looks. Now, going hand in hand with key number two is key number three of cleaning up the glass. That's the final key for me when it comes to trying to pull the upset against Indiana State. Now, this is pertinent. Cleaning up their glass, owning the rebounds, that is going to be the number one priority for the Gophers in this one, because both Michigan State and Alabama destroyed in this category. This is how they absolutely dominated in those matchups, because in each of those matchups, both Alabama and Michigan State saw 40-plus rebounds in those games, and they held Indiana State to 29 or less rebounds in both of those matchups. So if you can own the boards, you can really claim it and keep them off, especially off of the offensive rebounds. That is going to be how you win this game. Now, even looking at your different matchups that they lost, the Drake matchups and whatnot, the Southern Illinois, Illinois State, and then those two power conference matchups, across all of them, most occasions for those lower division schools, they were able to force or limit the offensive rebounds, keeping them to 6 offensive rebounds or less. If you can make sure to give them less offensive rebounds and less second chance points, that's how you keep them off the scoreboard, and you could start to dominate the time of possession, play into your strategies, and really give this team issues. So shooting efficiently from 3-point, focusing on your interior defense, and cleaning up the glass. Those are the 3 keys that will make sure Minnesota wins this matchup, pulls off the upset, and keeps on rolling in the NIT tournament. But what is the outlook? If Minnesota pulls off the dub, if they pull off another upset, does that mean they're going to win this thing? Does that mean that everything is smooth sailing after that? We're going to talk about what the path forward looks like and what it can do for the Gophers moving forward. That's what's coming up to close up today's show here at Locked On Golden Gophers. Before we get to that, I want to talk to you about our friends over at Nissan, because this week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. And each week we're picking one of the teams that stands out, a team that pushed it further than the rest. Just like all of the new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. Now, this week's is the Michigan State Spartans, who can only be called the Nissan Pathfinder, because they had been thrilling to watch, and they really created a lane for themselves. They knocked off Mississippi State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Many questioned if they deserved a spot in the big dance, and they found a way into the second round. So that's definitely what you want to do. Find a path, and with the Pathfinder, you will be doing yourself some justice and then some. Definitely give it a try. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. You can shop at nissanusa.com and give yours a try. Again, that's nissanusa.com. All right, Gophers fans, we are wrapping this one up, talking about what the outlook for Minnesota is if they can pull off this upset. Not only what it does for them moving forward, but what are the things to keep in mind as we move forward through the end of the season and to the offseason. Now, if Minnesota can get the win, they head to the quarterfinals of the NIT, which means they only would have one more game on the road at an opposing college campus. After you get through that quarterfinal matchup, it is back to a neutral site, and it is back to having at least maybe even odds as opposed to a home court advantage. So The Gophers would definitely be looking to get to that type of environment, which would play more into their favor. Now, both of the semifinal matchups and the championship matchups are at a neutral site, which is definitely helpful, but it's also a territory that the Gophers have already been to at Hinkle Stadium, which is the home of the Butler Bulldogs, where Minnesota pulled out their first win in the NIT tournament and now should feel like a home away from home. They've got the vibe, they've got the setup, they've got the practice on those rims and those hoops. Now is the time where if you can pull off these 2 more wins, you will find yourself playing in a neutral site that feels like a new home court for you, and that could go a long way. So if Minnesota can win this matchup, they would await the winner of the Bradley versus Cincinnati matchup, which that is the 2 seed and the 3 seed of this bracket. Now, my guess is Cincinnati is going to win that game, but it could go either way. But both Cincinnati and Indiana State were some of the most picked or the most chosen by media analysts to win the NIT tournament. In fact, they were top favorites to win across many different media sources. So you're talking about the Gophers could not only take down the number 1 team, but also the 2 seed that has been a favorable one for the NIT winner outlook. If the Gophers do that, they will put so many teams on notice heading into the next season, especially if you can convince players to get back. Now, if you're going to win the NIT tournament, I think that tells you right there and then some, the players that were on your team, look, we got to do this thing again because we just won this whole dang thing and we should have been in the tournament. We should have cleaned up a couple more games in the season and we would have made a run in the tournament. But now we have the experience. We have the guys who can all come back. We have some young studs coming to our class next year. We can get it done. More chemistry, more flow, more understanding. They would be playing more instinctively, and that could play in their favor. So if the Gophers can keep making a run, if they can beat Indiana State and maybe even pull off one more, or if they can win the whole darn thing, I think that's where you're going to really make these guys think. Should we do it again? Should we run it back? We have to, right? And that's where you want the Gophers to be ending this season. The Gophers are looking to continue to stack W's and close out this season strong. Now, hopefully winning continues to inspire these guys to return and run it back. That's priority numero uno. But also you have a big factor going of playing in postseason basketball right now. These guys that didn't make it to postseason basketball that are hitting the transfer portal are watching your teams right now. And you can have those conversations and you can't really go full scale all the way out to try and go and recruit these guys, but you can keep those conversations going and show what your team does and see how your play style is and see the fight of your team. And all of a sudden, hopefully winning can convince some of those portal prospects, those portal targets to head your way, to be like, oh, I could be the next piece to get them from the NIT to the tournament. I could be the next piece to make sure we get to the Sweet 16, to the Elite 8, or what have you. So this could be not only beneficial for keeping your players here in the program next season, but also bringing in your portal targets. And then finally, hopefully winning will give those still skeptical about Coach Ben Johnson. And there are still many that I see out there on the Twitter sphere that are skeptical or hating or just downright rude about Coach Ben Johnson. And I think that if Minnesota can keep on winning and maybe win this whole dang thing, that gives these haters a chance to reevaluate and embrace the coach as opposed to tearing him down. So we'll only see what happens, and it all starts tomorrow with the Indiana State matchup on the road where the Gophers will look to pull off another upset. Now, like I said, on tomorrow's show, because we're going to have a Sunday episode as well, we're going to talk about what I saw at the Gophers Dinkytown athletes practice, some things to keep in mind as we move forward in spring, and so much more. So be sure to hit subscribe, be sure to follow along, be sure to hit that thumbs up button so others can find the channel, and I'll see you tomorrow. Roll the boat, Sky, go Gophers as always, and don't forget to hit subscribe.